respectfully suggest the top table wear masks.
I don't think we have any. Are we now recording? Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's meeting of the Audit and Scrutiny Committee. I'd like to begin, as usual, with some preliminary issues around protocol, because this is a hybrid meeting. So, to remind you, a copy of today's proceedings will be recorded and made available on the Council's YouTube channel following the end of the meeting. And to help with the smooth running of the meeting, if you're joining remotely, could you please remember to keep your microphone on mute when you're not speaking, use the raise your hand function if you would like to speak or contribute to the debate, mute your microphone again after you finish your contribution, and avoid using the chat function for debate amongst one another. For those attending in person, please remember to activate your microphone so people online can hear what you have to say, and switch that off again when you're finished speaking. Myself and the officers attending the meeting today will monitor proceedings with a view to ensuring all requests to speak are seen. To go over today's attendance list, we are joined by Stephen Quinn, the Chief Executive of the Council, Margaret McCrossan, our Head of Accountancy, Barbara Clark, Chief Accountant, Michelle Blair, Chief Auditor, Linda Hutchison, Clerk to the Committee, Jennifer Graham, Committee Services Officer, Leslie Ann Burns, Assistant Committee Services Officer, and Rob Jones from Ernst & Young, our external auditors. That takes us on to today's agenda. Item number 1, Clerk, apologies for absence.
Yes, Chair, we have apologies from Councillor Wallace.
Okay, Councillor Wallace, thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest. So, as a reminder, the Councillor's Code of Conduct requires members to declare any financial or non-financial interests on items in today's agenda. Are there any declarations to be made? That's no. Okay. Item 3 is my Chairman's report. So, a couple of issues to update you on this afternoon. Firstly, prior to this meeting, I had a meeting with Rob Jones from Ernst & Young. It was a regular kind of catch-up conversation as our external auditors, and we discussed issues such as the upcoming budget and areas such as financial pressures, internal audit matters, and external audit issues such as planning for the audit of the March 24 financial statements, and also the best value thematic reporting on workforce planning. The second item is to update the committee. If you recall, when we met in January, we had a bit of a debate around the 2022-23 absence management report for the year. And there were a variety of concerns expressed by committee members on absence issues, and it was agreed by the committee that we'd explore options on how we could take that forward, and it was suggested that a subcommittee be set up or a working group be formed so that we could look at absenteeism and a variety of measures which could be taken to redress it. So it has been confirmed, and I appreciate that Linda, as the clerk, has emailed out to you all that a meeting is to be arranged between myself, Councillor Wallace and Councillor Ireland, and the three of us together will be representing the committee and meeting the head of HR and the HR manager to discuss the issues which the committee collectively raise. So work is ongoing to confirm a date for that meeting. If I could also take the opportunity to remind the committee, as requested by the clerk earlier this week on my behalf, to ensure that any questions which committee members would like to raise, if you can please email those in before Thursday 29th of February, that would be much appreciated in terms of collating the papers for that meeting. I would ask that committee members now note my report. Okay, get some nods online. Thank you. Item number 4. It's the Treasury Management Strategy for the forthcoming year, 24-25, and I'd like to invite Barbara Clark to speak to this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. As part of the SIPFA Treasury Management Code of Practice, this committee is responsible for ensuring effective scrutiny of the Treasury Management Strategy and recommending to Council its approval, including the prudential and Treasury indicators, the investment instruments, the list of investors and the policy on the repayment of loans fund advances. It's primarily because of these requirements that I present this to you today. This report is a similar format to that of previous years and sets out the Council's borrowing and investment strategies and parameters that help to monitor both, and in summary, we're not planning to do anything different from last year. To allow Council's borrowing to be controlled, we have set up prudential indicators which monitor the permissible borrowing and allow us to compare this against the gross debt. And from the table on page 15, you can see that we plan not to fully fund capital spend by external borrowing, but instead to use the Council's reserves balances as a temporary measure. This was considered both prudent and cost-effective, as interest rates are forecast to start falling from the second quarter of 2024. The prudential indicators have been set up using the Council's 24-25 proposed capital programme, which has been compiled on the latest information available, and any movement in the programme spend will affect how well we keep within the prudential limits set. As stated in paragraph 4.2c, due to the introduction of a new accounting standard, the prudential indicators may require to be reviewed during the year once the implications of the new standards have been finalised. And this will be reported to this committee as part of the quarterly Treasury reporting, along with our projected outturn position at that time. Later on in the year, I'll also come back and provide a year-end report so that the final position can be reviewed against the approved indicators. With regards to the investment strategy, this is controlled by establishing what types of investment we can make, and these are stated in Annex C. And in Annex D, the associated risks are explained. Our primary objectives are always security and liquidity, and this is achieved by not only controlling what type of investment we make, but who we make it with. And in this regard, I've listed out in Annex E a list of counterparties for you to recommend for approval. This list also shows the investment limits to ensure that the Council has a diverse portfolio. The ratings of these bodies are monitored at least on a weekly basis, and if any institutions fall below our minimum rating level, then they would be removed from the list to prevent any further investments being made. Moving on to the rest of the report, it won't have escaped your notice that there's a lot of economic background information from our Treasury advisors, and this is highlighted in the report by using a lighter typeface. This is provided to give you some context of not only the UK but the global economic picture. Lastly, as in previous years, the final section of the report is on training. This year, there's been no formal training from the Treasury advisors. However, I'm happy to arrange for training in this area and would ask you to let me know through committee services if you would like this to be organised. I'm also happy to be contacted at any time should you want a better understanding of any specific area within the report. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
That's super. Thank you, Barbara. I'd like to throw it out to members if anyone has any. I think your microphone might still be on.
Oh, sorry.
This is now, thanks. I'd like to throw it open to the phone now if there are any questions from members. Not seen any hands raised online. No? Okay. Can I ask if we are happy? Oh, Councillor Ireland, were you about to raise your hand?
No.
Okay. On that basis, ask if we can accept the report. Agreed. Okay, thank you. Next item is item 5, which is the Internal Audit Plan 23-24. So looking at the quarter to December 2023, and I'd like to invite a Chief Auditor to speak to this report. Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you, Chair. 3 audits relating to Plan 23-24 audit work have been issued and responses received in the third quarter of the year. These were Environment Follow-up Audit, which has now been circulated in full to the Audit Committee members, Climate Change Report, where there was no recommendations required to be made, and the Sickness Absence PI, and the findings of the Sickness Absence PI were included in the last quarterly progress report. As noted in the covering report, there was no new request for assistance to use contingency in the quarter. And also included in the report, I've reviewed the days available to me and would ask committee to approve the revised 23-24 audit plan per Appendix 1. There's 8 audits where I'm asking, what I'm proposing to delete. And the ones that we'll complete in 23-24 are sufficient to allow me to provide an assurance statement to a future meeting of the committee. So subject to any questions, I would ask you to note the progress report and approve the amended audit plan.
Okay, are there any questions from members? I do have a question, Michelle, which is on the environment follow-up audit. So 4.5.2 on page 57. As part of the digitisation process, a review should be carried out in contracts to identify any private land being maintained by the council. Now, on the more detailed report, which was circulated by email, there was a figure estimated to be £16,700 as, if you like, the kind of contract value involved in this. It seems a little circular to me that obviously there's an estimate being placed on that, but by the same token, the department is saying that they don't have the skill required to identify what the contracts are. So I was really just wondering how accurate that estimate is, because colleagues will be very mindful of the fact that the council will set the budget later this month, and the environment department may be one of the areas looked at for potential savings, and if there's potentially ways that we could mitigate that, that would be much appreciated. Thank you.
Well, I can certainly seek some further feedback on that from the Environment Department. Councillor Ireland is leading in the review of that report, and I can contact her to see if there's anything else about that report that she's wanting clarified, and get anything at the same time.
That'd be much appreciated. I think we just need a wee bit of kind of certainty that the estimate of £16,000 is accurate, particularly in light of the fact that the papers here say that the department said they don't have the skill set required to fully identify all of these contracts. So if it's 16,000 or 116,000, I think we need to know. Do you want to come on, Michelle?
Just really to bring to your attention, this is a follow-up audit, so that estimate I think was done back in 2021. It was quite a few years ago, so it might be out of date.
Okay, no, I think that's good to know. I have a hand raised from Councillor Ireland. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair. It was just, I see that the department has said no, they don't have the capability to find out this information. Is that something that will be pressed on a later date for them to follow through on this? I'd quite like an answer to that.
I think it's a very good point, Councillor Ireland. Yeah.
I personally wasn't going to press them on that, because they've come back and said no, they don't have the skills to do it, and we classified it as low. But I don't know, it's maybe something we should take up with the new Director of Environment.
Would you like to come back in?
I did note that it had been marked low, but I do agree with the Chair's comments that given the position we're in with regard to budgets, it would be very good to identify a figure that's involved and how much is involved, and do the department intend to carry on? If they've identified or estimated 16 and odd thousand, do they intend to carry on the maintenance of this land? Is anything being looked at all in the department? Yeah, I probably would want to press a little bit further.
Yeah, I think that basically surmises my view too. I think it's quite hard sell to be making cuts to environment services which are for the common public good, when the same department is deploying resources to maintain private land, and we're not identifying what we should be doing, what we shouldn't be doing. So I think we need a bit more understanding of whether this is an immaterial amount or if in actual fact, if we were to look at it more closely, we would identify it as far more than £16,000. I think we just need some comfort on that.
Yeah, that's fine. With your agreement, I can seek that from the department and see what the way forward is.
Okay, that's great. Councillor Ireland, is that a legacy hand, or you're quite happy with what you've heard?
That is a legacy hand. Apologies. I'm quite happy with that. Thank you.
No worries, thank you. And Councillor MacDonald.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just wanted to ask you about the 8 areas that have been identified for deleting, and just wanted to get a better understanding, really. What would be involved in terms of, let's just say, for example, an audit of debtors or an audit of childcare and early learning? What is actually involved with that process? And I'm just trying to kind of get a better understanding as to how you come to the conclusions that these are the areas that you need to focus on deleting.
Yeah, Michelle, would you like to contribute to that? Because really we're kind of dependent on your professional judgment in terms of this profiling, what tests should be deleted and what tests should be continued.
Okay, so debtors and creditors, or accounts payable and accounts receivable, the reason I've deleted them is we do tend to cover them to some degree every single year, either a regularity audit every year or every 5 years a systems audit. So to delete it for 1 year, and it's both regularity, it's only 10 days, we're going to pick it up quite early on in 24-25. So I don't feel we're really missing out that, because we have audited it every single year. In terms of the ones have I deleted? The commercial rents, I'd spoken to Environment, and we've scheduled to do that fairly early on in 24-25. The staff involved with that aren't really available in the first quarter due to year-end accounts. Grant certification, that's probably going to be deleted completely, because there's no longer a requirement to audit some of these grants that previously we had to. Early learning and childcare payments, again, I spoke to the education department, and again that's scheduled to be done kind of halfway through 24-25. What else? Again, payments to care providers is just a lack of days, so we're going to again try and address that in 24-25. But these will all be. We'll probably discuss all of these when I submit my plan to the Audit Committee in the next couple of months.
Okay, Councillor MacDonald, do you have any further comment to make on that?
Yeah, satisfied with that. It seems that you're kind of going over yourself twice unnecessarily, so I can completely understand the reasoning behind identifying those 8 cases. Thank you for that. For me. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor. Any further comments? I'll be happy to set the report. Okay, with that brings us to the end of today's business. A short meeting today. Thank you for your attendance. Cheers.